Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is Fred DeFalco, founder of the 920 Society and Twisdomology. This is Beyond the Box, how AI, along with your intelligence and intention, can bring about world peace by 2035. You may be saying to me, Fred, I don't have my own peace. How am I going to bring about world peace? Stay tuned. Give me 15, 20 minutes here. The 920 Society and the School of Twisdomology is a movement born not out of politics, religion, or even modern spirituality, but from a timeless promise, a covenant of peace and goodwill for all humanity, a promise that has echoed across 4,000 years, and yet it still remains unfulfilled. Not because it isn't real, but because we've misunderstood how to live it. What we're doing through the 920 Society is bold, it's unconventional, and to some it might even sound impossible. But I'm here to tell you it's not with the power of collective intention. The world is filled with people confined by the boxes of their beliefs, whether religious, cultural, or personal. These boxes, shaped by ego and outdated paradigms and programming, they limit our growth, our connection, and our potential. This is what destroys our relationships, our families, our marriages, our companies, our organizations, and yes, nations. These are the things that create walls between individuals and communities and nations. And this is just think about it. What if we could move beyond these boxes? What if we could see ourselves and each other as we truly are? We are building a path to global peace, not through protest or policy, but through clarity, certainty, and intention. And if that's what you want, you're in the right place. And I want to bring about the convergence of three powerful intelligences: artificial intelligence, your soul intelligence, and divine intelligence integrity. I want to bring this convergence. I believe it's a key, the final key to fulfilling the ancient promise to begin with the Abrahamic Covenant in 2091 BC. Imagine a world where decisions are not driven by ego but clarity, where leaders are not motivated by power but by purpose, where families are healed, businesses are transformed, and communities are united not by force, but by understanding that our own businesses are not about making money, but making beautiful lives. This is not a utopia, it's the outcome of conscious intention. And AI, when guided by soul aligned values, can amplify this intention beyond anything we've seen before in the entire history of mankind. Technology becomes a tool not of distraction or division, but of awakening and acceleration. I've lived the consequences of being trapped in a false identity for 63 years. I've seen success without peace, relationships without depth, and beliefs without truth, all in the name of being a go get 'em. Let's go get 'em. But you know what? I've also experienced the liberation that comes from committing to seeing versus knowing, seeking wisdom from above versus from within, driven by finally listening to that still small voice of my own soul, my soul intelligence that was constantly whispering to me, saying, "Hey, Fred, there's more. There's more to this. There's more to life. There's more you're not seeing." Now, I want to be really clear. This isn't about converting you to a belief system. It's not about anything I want you to think like me. It's about awakening you to a deeper truth, your inner truth, a truth that lives inside you, whether I don't care whether you've been religious all your life, whether you're agnostic, atheist, spiritual, or somewhere in between. This is about the theology of one, and that is you and why you were sent here. And you know deep down inside what it is: significance, love, peace, and goodwill for all. We just want to be loved. We just want to be significant. We want peace. We want goodwill. And we also want it for all. We live in a world of 8 billion souls. And far too many feel lost, alone, and unsure of who they really are, no matter if all the successes or not. We live boxed in by roles and fears and belief systems that have shaped our personalities but buried our personhood. And those boxes, this is what's created tribes. Tribes have created wars, and wars have created wounds that are passed down generation after generations. We believe it's time to break those boxes. The 920 societies are called back to clarity and certainty to help every human being being rediscovered for who they really are. Not as a brand, not as a belief, but as a soul. A soul designed for greatness, a soul designed with peace in its DNA and with the power to affect the atmosphere of the world around them. How do we do that? Well, it's through the School of Twisdomology, where time and wisdom and truth and wisdom, your time and your wisdom that you have within and you haven't tapped, and just willing to face the truth and allow wisdom from above to come in and rule your soul to that place of peace and goodwill for yourself first and for all. And it's to merge and to uncover the truth of who you really are, why you're here, and what role you're meant to play in your little time span that you get in this limited generation that we will say, this is my generation. You see, the world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more individuals who are clear and certain in heart, mind, and soul. Mind, will, and emotions. That's what the soul is, mind, will, and emotions. Because when you're clear and certain about life and your life, your presence alone shifts an entire room and it also ripples healing throughout the entire world. And this is what I teach. That's what I embody. And that's what we are inviting 9,200,000 people to awaken to. Why 9,200,000? Well, every movement needs a measurable spark. This is just 0.12% of the global population. Unified, can you imagine unified in soul intelligence, acting with clarity and compassion? Could be the tipping point that brings about world peace by 2035. Not hypothetically, but I'm talking pragmatically in practice. Artificial intelligence helps us scale. Soul intelligence keeps us anchored. Divine intelligence reminds us that this isn't just a mission, it's a fulfillment of a covenant. And here's the part most people don't realize: the Abrahamic Covenant, a 4,000-year promise. It wasn't a demand, it was a promise. That's what it is. And it wasn't about obedience to rules. It wasn't about a belief system. It was about getting the first benefactors in alignment and getting them lined up to the love that would bleed and die for them eventually. That's the part the world missed. That's the clarity we are seeking to restore. And that is among all those that claim the Abrahamic Covenant. 4 billion people. This journey is personal for me. I spent decades trapped in false identities, chasing success, seeking validation, performing perfection. I've made millions and millions of dollars. I've lost millions and millions of dollars. I faced plenty of times of silence, of success, I call it, many times over, but none of the successes have ever given me the power of peace over conflict and love versus fear. I've watched relationships suffer, identities collapse, and all belief systems fail the individuals who dedicated their life to them. And sadly, many of them my own family members. But I've also discovered the power of awakening to who I truly am, not as a brand or a role, but a son of a 4,000-year covenant, a carrier of peace and goodwill, a mirror of divine love. It is my birthright and it's your birthright. Living with such clarity and certainty and constantly in a state of peace versus conflict and love versus fear. That is the law of my life. Peace versus conflict, love versus fear. And that's what I want for you, my friend. That's what I want for every person I will ever meet for my rest of my days on this round ball we call home. This is your time. It's a time to wake up, your wake up call. You know, you don't need to leave your career, your church, your temple, mosque, or community. You just need to reclaim clarity and certainty of life, certainty of your purpose, because clarity is what gives you courage. Clarity is what brings peace, and clarity is what fuels collective awakening. I share this message not just as a personal revelation, but as a collective invitation. I am inviting you. The 920 Society is not about converting people, it's about awakening them, especially all 4 plus billion of you with religious practices that are rooted in the Abrahamic Covenant, and you may not even understand it. That's who I want to speak to first, because we're the one holding the world back from peace and goodwill for all. It's all of us who claim a religious status of some type. It's about reminding every soul of their true value, their power, and the role that they have in this great unfolding. Think about this. Every 90 years, the world experiences a generational reset or a pivot or a shift, right? That you look around you. 90 years from today, look all around you. No one will be here. Most likely. There'll be some, very few. And when I think about that, even my precious, beautiful, wonderful, perfect, loving, all these angels, my grandchildren and my great grandchildren, now three and one more on the way. But 90 years from now, wow, it's amazing. A moment where everything is reevaluated, restructured, and reborn. Think about it. Everyone is removed and the new to take over, come in and take over. Why? Because divine integrity of God, universe, source, it has a love for this round ball called Earth, and it's doing a work and it's going to get done no matter what. And unfortunately, we get fixed, so we got to leave. We are in that moment right now. Every new day, we see it. It gets better and better and closer to the fulfillment of this promise. The world has gotten better, it hasn't gotten worse. You can feel it. In the tension, the noise, the uncertainty, yes, you feel it there, but underneath that chaos, you know, we can sense that doorway, that call to that's asking us to remember who we really are, a call to remember what we forgot. All we do is all seek for heaven, right? That's what we forget, where we came from. Love is where we came from. Love is where we go back to. The call to remember what we forgot, the peace. It's not an idea. It's a responsibility. It's a frequency, and it's our birthright. We believe peace is not the absence of war. It's the presence of clarity and intention. And the world changes not when leaders make new laws, but when we individuals live new truths of who we really are personally. This is not a movement of one man. It's not a movement of me. This is a movement of many souls coming home to who they really are. And they came from love and they will be returning to love. They came from wisdom. They'll be returning to wisdom. So I invite you, my friend, examine your story, question all the boxes you've inherited. Listen to the voice of your secret heart. Reclaim your power, not to dominate, but to heal. Heal yourself, heal your family, heal your community, heal your company, heal your world, heal your business, and know that peace is not a wish. It's a decision, it's a practice, a way of being. And within our own being, we came for peace and we're going to be returning to it. Together, through soul intelligence, divine integrity, and the strategic power of AI, we can fulfill the ancient promises and create a future where peace and goodwill are not the exception, but the norm. And we can do it by 2035 by uniting 9,200,000 souls in perfect sync with the same intention. We will bring about global transformation. And it's just one little practice daily for 2 minutes a day. 2 minutes a day, we can make this happen by 2035. And you'll hear that in the 920 Society. Let's talk a little bit about real estate just quickly. Real estate, the ground beneath the promise. Real estate has been my foundation of my entire career, over 50 years now, not just as a means of commerce, but as a sacred space where peace, purpose, and people intersect. Think about it. It's easy to forget real estate is the earth itself. It's what we build our homes, family, businesses, and legacies upon. Go to 920promise.com or 920agent.com. You'll see that how important real estate is. There's a poem in there I want you to download. It's what every covenant has been rooted in, from Abraham's promised land to Moses leading the Israelites, had to leave Egypt and go on over and go through the desert, all about land right underneath their feet. All the way to King David's throne and then to the eternal kingdom that Christ came to fulfill. And then the Prophet Muhammad, his call for justice, unity, and submission to the divine was shaped amid disputes over land, tribal power, and resource protection against who? The Jews and the Christians, because of what they did to him. Land was never just land, it was a legacy. And today, the conversation continues, not in scripture, but in city skylines and generational wealth. That's why I'm not leaving real estate behind. I'm staying in it another 10 years, all the way up to 2035, because it needs a soul centered revolution. Real estate, like everything else, has been wounded by ego, conflict, short term gain. Do you know 36% of Americans cry? They admitted to crying during a home selling process? Can you imagine why? Look it up. Zillow did that study. But I've seen what happens when land can become a canvas for clarity and where careers, someone builds a career much bigger than just themselves and for themselves. Take for example the recent developments in the United Arab Emirates. And yes, no matter your political views or what you think of Donald Trump or not think of Donald Trump or politics, it doesn't matter, or his visit. The truth is, what we witnessed was remarkable. Beyond politics, beyond media narratives, beyond personal opinions, we saw vision. We saw people who had gotten out of boxes of belief systems and cultures. We saw what happens when leaders and cultures step outside of their own boxes. And yes, they didn't abandon the belief system, they just opened the box up. What they did with their land and how they invested in it, built upon it, and honored its value, created wealth that the world has never seen. And unity and a living model for what peace and goodwill looks like for all and can look like as a daily practice. They will end up healing Gaza, I promise you, and helping and healing Gaza. That transformation started with real estate. It's not just a business, it's a global key to peace. If we can shift how we buy, sell, build, and share space from conflict to clarity, from ego to equity, we can anchor the 920 promise right into the soil beneath our feet. Real estate isn't just property, it's proof that the covenant is real and possible here and now. Thank you for tuning in, my friend. Welcome to the School of Twisdomology. You'll be hearing so much more about this. I will see you. If you're on Facebook, the 920 Society points to activate the 920 hidden code, which is the hidden code of peace and goodwill for all. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.